Dora is late. Shockingly late on her birthday, too. I am surprised!" exclaimed Elsie, who was in a fidget of impatience to present her sister with a marker on which she had made. "And Aunt has kept us more than 20 minutes waiting for prayers," cried Amy. "I am surprised, for she is always so punctual." "And Agnes has employed the time on mending my gloves, the most surprising thing of all," laughed Lucius. "Why so surprising?" asked Elise. "Because a few months ago Agnes was much more given to picking holes than to sewing them up," answered the boy. "I liked to plague her and she to tease me, and I thought that we should always live a kind of cat and dog life together. But now we're going to be grand allies," added the merry boy, clapping Agnes upon the shoulder. "By your example you'll help to mend my manners as well as my gloves." Lucius spoke in his saucy, playful way, but there's many a true word spoken in jest, and he was but expressing what all the family had observed, that there was a gradual but steady improvement in the outer conduct of the once peevish and selfish girl. But the sharpest conflict of Agnes upon her 12th birthday had been against a jealous spirit within. From a few words dropped by her aunt on the previous evening, Agnes felt sure that her mother's likeness would be given as a birthday present to one of the twins, and she had not a doubt that the younger would be the one thus favored. "It was just the same last birthday," thought Agnes with bitterness. "I am given some makeshift. Dora has what is really of value. It is rather hard that she should always be preferred before her elder sister because she is called after my aunt, whilst I am named after my mother. But oh, how wicked is this feeling of jealousy, how sinful these unkind and covetous thoughts. Lord, help me to overcome this secret temptation, and to feel pleasure, real pleasure, when I see Dora wearing that which is so precious to us both." As the thought, or rather the prayer, passed through the mind of Agnes, the door opened and Miss Clare entered, followed by Dora. The lady held the beautiful brooch in her hand, and going up to the elder twin, whom she had not met before on that morning, with a kiss and a whispered blessing, fastened the precious jewel on her breast. That 24th day of December was a day long remembered with delight by many a poor child in Chester, for large was the number of scholars, it would be scarcely just to call them ragged, who enjoyed the feast and the varied amusements provided for them in the large red house by their benefactress, Miss Clare. Specially was the wonderful model which the young gentlefolk had made, the theme of many a conversation in the low courts and lanes from which the guests had been gathered. Worn, weary mothers, at their sewing or washing, paused, needle in hand, or with arms whitened with soap suds, to hear of the golden pillars and silver loops, and above all of the splendid embroidery that adorned the inner part of the model, that part which, as Miss Clare had told them, was called the Holy of Holies. "And the young ladies looked just as pleased and happy as we," a barefooted little urchin observed at the end of a lively narration of all the wonders that he had seen. "All but one, and her eyes were red as if she'd been a-cryin'. What could she have had to make her cry? But she smiled too when we clapped our hands and shouted for joy as we saw the beautiful tent." What delighted their eyes and pleased their fancy was what naturally made the greatest impression on the ragged scholars who had stared in wondering admiration on the model of the Tabernacle of Israel. But the concluding words of a little address made by Miss Clare to the children were what sank deepest into the memories and hearts of her twin nieces. "I have described to you, my dear young pupils, the various parts of this model," she said. "Let me now briefly point out a few lessons which we should all carry away. In Israel's tabernacle we see a type of every Christian, in whose body, as St. Paul tells us, God's Holy Spirit deigns to dwell. 1 Corinthians 3:16. In that living tabernacle, the lowly heart is the Holy of Holies, because it is cleansed by the blood of sprinkling. In it the commandments of God are treasured, and the light of his love shines within. But as the tabernacle was not intended to last forever, but to give place to a far more splendid building, so is it with these bodies of ours. As Solomon's magnificent temple, glorious and fair and firm on its deep foundation, far surpassed the tabernacle made to be moved from place to place, so will the glorified bodies of saints, when they are raised from their graves, surpass these weak, mortal bodies in which they served their Lord upon the earth. For what saith the Apostle Paul? We know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. 2 Corinthians 5:1. End of chapter 21. End of the Children's Tabernacle, or Handwork and Heartwork, by Charlotte